McGee Seymour here, and I've got a swell deal for you. October 26, 27, and 28, I'll be at Dougherty Farm Spooky's Erie Halloween Hunt out in Southern California. Not just completely, I mean completely transforming their funny farm into the eeriest place you'll ever experience. They'll have bats screeching, witches cackling, skeletons ratting, corpses laughing, spooky fireworks, and monsters monstering. Yes, I said monsters monstering. Plus Satan's Long Ride with creepy, heart-stopping, spine-tingling live monsters. And here's the real spooky special. On Friday, Saturday, October 26 and 27, from 6 to midnight, 6 spooky hours of unlimited use of all attractions for only $4, if purchased in advance. And that includes me, Bridges. Don't miss Knott's one-of-a-kind Halloween hunt. Save by purchasing your advance tickets now at Wallace Music City Stores, Liberty Ticket Agency, and Knott's Berry Farm.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the finish line of Midsummer Scream 2017. In 1973, a tradition was born in Buena Park, California. A simple Halloween party that has become the worldwide industry standard. For the past 45 years, terrified guests have clung to each other, passing through the darkened streets of Ghost Town and into a nightmare we simply refer to as Haunt. Knott's Scary Farm is iconic, the birthplace of modern theme park Halloween events, immersive mazes, horrifying shows, roaming street monsters, and yes, even sliders can trace their roots 4 decades back to Orange County. Today, we recognize the significant role Knott's has played in this industry and invite you now to enjoy 45 years of Knott's Scary Farm. Please welcome to the stage, author, Knott's historian, and industry designer, Ted Dougherty.
Got it. Hi, everybody. Hi, my name is Ted Dougherty. I am a writer, a producer, director. Get to work with Halloween events, get to work with theme parks, which periodically allows me to revisit my roots at Knott's Scary Farm, where I worked several years as one of the sliding monsters in the Ghost Town Scare Zone, and I also wrote this book, Knott's Halloween Haunt, Thanks. So, Knott's Scary Farm is very near and dear to my heart, so it's a huge honor for me to be your host for today's presentation. So I'd like to officially welcome you to the Knott's Scary Farm Halloween Haunt 45th anniversary celebration here at Midsummer Scream. Thank you so much for joining us today. Give yourselves a hand because you're about to witness history. Yeah. Now, when Midsummer Scream's creative director, Rick West, first approached me about this sort of rotating panel concept, I loved the idea, and I think you're going to enjoy it too. The way it's going to work is we're going to bring out a panel. They're going to talk about various aspects of Knott's Scary Farm's history. Then they'll be replaced by some other folks. We'll talk about other aspects of Knott's Scary Farm's history, and so on and so on. Now, we've got an amazing show planned for you today, but we've got a packed show planned for you today with a lot of information to cover in a very short period of time. So we're going to dive right into it, but before we do, just a couple small housekeeping items just to kind of make sure we're on the same page. Knott's Halloween Haunt debuted in 1973, primarily due to one person. That person was featured in that little opening montage there. Sinister Seymour, who was a very famous television horror host here in Southern California during the late 60s, early 1970s. It was Seymour's people who first contacted Knott's Berry Farm to have Seymour perform at the Main Stage Theater there in October. Knott's loved the idea and said, hey, we can build a Halloween event around Seymour, and in a basic nutshell, that was the birth of Halloween Haunt at Knott's Berry Farm, and the spark of the longest running Halloween themed event at any theme park in the entire world, which is pretty incredible considering how many there are nowadays. Now, another quick note, for every one of the panelists that we feature today, they represent literally thousands of former and current Knott's Berry Farm employees who've helped make the event what it is today. In other words, we acknowledge not every single person who ever had anything to do with Knott's Berry Farm's success is here today. This is an overview to help celebrate the event's upcoming landmark anniversary. But please know this, immediately following today's presentation out there in the theater lobby, we're going to have a reception where all of our panelists are going to be hanging out for a meet and greet, and you are all invited to join us. The reason we're doing this is because this is the first time in Knott's Berry Farm history so many of its pioneers are under one roof at the same place at the same time. In fact, it's not just the people that we're going to feature on stage. Can we bring up the house lights real quick, please? All right, just bear with me just real quick. If you have ever worked Knott's Berry Farm in any sort of capacity, can you please stand up for me? Go ahead, stand up. Don't be shy. If you ever worked Knott's Berry Farm, you're not shy. All right. So as you can see, we are surrounded by Knott's Berry Farm's history. All of these people standing up have left their imprint on the success of this event. They too will be joining us at the reception afterwards. So get to know their faces right now so you can shake hands with them afterwards. Let's give them a hand. Thank you guys so much. All right. With that said, we're ready to get started. You guys ready? You guys ready? Come on. Strap yourselves in, this is going to be a wild ride. Go ahead and hit the lights and hit the first video. We'll bring out our first panel. Here we go. First up, we have the original, quote-unquote, chief spookmaster who worked for the Hurlbut Amusement Company, the same company that owned and operated the log ride and the mine ride in the early days of Knott's Berry Farm. Our panelist here was responsible for decorating those attractions during the first several Halloween haunts. Please welcome Mr. John Waite. next up, we have one of the few individuals that holds the distinction of being among the very first Not Scary Farm Ghost Town Scare Zone monsters, dating back to year 1, 1973. And perhaps just as notable was the character she portrayed, the original Green Witch of Not Scary Farm. Give it up for Diana Kirchen Kelly. Last but certainly not least, our next panelist was a performer at the early Halloween haunts. For Knott's Berry Farm, she was a dancer, a choreographer, became a supervisor at numerous locations throughout the park, wound up becoming the Knott's Berry Farm Director of Live Entertainment, and spent a career that spanned over 4 decades at Knott's Berry Farm. Please welcome Julie Owens. You've got this so much cool history right here. Okay, we'll dive right into it. John, we're going to start off with you. You know, Knott's during the beginning years had a lot of forms of entertainment to kind of kick off this Halloween concept. They had their celebrity host of Seymour. They had a lot of entertainment throughout the park, and the 2 main attractions, the scare attractions, were the log ride and the mine ride. John, once it was established that the log ride and the mine ride were going to be rethemed for this Halloween party concept, can you talk a little bit about what your approach was in decorating those attractions for Halloween?
Well, this whole idea of a special event called Halloween Haunt came up really as a surprise to most of us that were working at the farm at that time. We're talking about 1973. And so I worked for a man by the name of Bud Hurlbut. Some of you that follow the history of Knott's know that Bud Hurlbut was a man that designed the mine ride, the log ride, the Fiesta Village rides, and he just was a very creative man, and I feel so blessed to have been able to work for him. But he came to me one day and he said, "John, the farm was thinking of doing a special promotion event. Would you go over there to Independence Hall and see what it's all about?" Well, when I got there, they had a long table with people from food, merchandise, entertainment, and of course some of the rides had their own concessionaire. And so I joined the group, and the head of publicity and promotion headed up the conversation, and he said, "We are going to do a farm-wide event that'll be called Halloween Haunt, and we just want everyone at the farm to have a part in it." And so I took that back to my boss, Bud Hurlbut, and he said, "What are you going to do?" Well, I had just heard about this. Well, we could do something, you know, we could put it together. And so that was kind of the way it all started.
Very cool. Now, outside of those attractions, the log ride and mine ride, we got a couple photos right there of what they look like, at least the mine ride in the next slide. That shows a little bit. Some of you may have seen those pictures over the years. But outside of those attractions, there are live monsters roaming the streets of Ghost Town. Diana, you were one of those monsters. Go ahead and hit this next slide. Diana, can you talk a little bit about what it was like working those first couple of Halloween haunts, and what it was like working with your fellow actors in Ghost Town?
It was so much fun. It was just fantastic because we all worked together. There were only 7 of us out on the streets. That was it. 3 gunfighters, 2 of the other street female characters. I was Annie Oakley and another streetwalker, for real. And that's what we call them. And a piano player in the Calico Saloon, and one guy who was a tech, but he happened to be 6'6" tall, and so he played Fred Munster and another character. So there were just 7 of us out on the streets. But we all knew each other really well because we worked Ghost Town together all the time. So working together and putting on this first event was just so much fun. We always traveled in pairs, and that was partly for safety and partly so we could, you know, sort of scope out what we wanted to do. There were no guidelines at all that first year. Just say travel in pairs, hang out in the livery stable because that was kind of dark, and so we could.
They could touch the guests back then.
Actually, yeah, we were told probably not to touch the guests, but it was not completely forbidden. Yeah. So we chose, you know, I didn't, but anyway, and we just sort of roamed the streets. I was also very busy with some other things too. I was announcing the Hello People in Wagon Camp because during my normal job as Annie Oakley, I announced country western music shows in the Wagon Camp. So Hello People was their mime rock group long before Kiss, by the way. Kiss sort of looked like them, not the other way around. And I announced them, and then I went and did the Market Street Monster Massacre, and then I was roaming the streets. So we had multiple tasks as monsters.
Very cool. Now, you just mentioned it. Let's look at this next slide. Back then at Knott's, they had these sort of, in Ghost Town, sort of stunt show skits that were repurposed for the event. One was named the Market Street Monster Massacre that starred Diana's character. Diana, for those who never got a chance to see it, what was the Market Street Monster Massacre?
That happened through Market Street, which starts at Calico Saloon, if you know that, and then worked its way down Market Street to the hotel at the very end of the street. And you'll see from the picture there's a very high roof at the very top. Well, the normal gunfight was called the roof show because the show ended with somebody shooting a shotgun at the guy on top of the roof, and then he would fall. This was the normal gunfight. For Halloween, they adapted it and called it the Market Street Monster Massacre, and instead of one of the gunfighters being up there, I was up there. But I didn't have to do the high fall, and I'll tell you why. So I was listening. I was up there on the roof just listening and waiting for the guys, the gunfighters, to come down the streets, and they were all dressed as monsters, and there were just 3 of them. Bang, 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 yelling, yelling, bang, and then they got closer. They got closer, and they got closer. Finally, George, one of the gunfighters, pulled up the shotgun, bang! Now, normally the gunfighter would fall off the roof, but not me. No, I was the witch. And everybody knows monsters never die!
Living history right there. Incredible. Wow. Now, in addition to those repurposed stunt shows, they also had these sort of carnival-like sideshows set up in the midways of Ghost Town, one of which was named Spydora, the Spider Woman that starred our very own Julie Owens. Julie, what was Spydora the Spider Woman, and what was it like portraying that character?
Well, before I tell you that, I just found out from Diana, her sister Julie did Spydora the year before I did.
How cool is that?
Yeah. So anyhow, you can see in the picture there, I was typecast because I had the long hair, I think. But it was an illusion. I gave you a basic mirror illusion. And it was covered with canvas before you even saw me. And I would have to get into this box a good 20 minutes before the show started because we didn't want to reveal the illusion of me really being the head of a spider. So I had to get into this box, and it was a small box. I'm short, so it was good, but I'd have to sit in the box like this until the show started. I think they had a little bench back there. So my crazy professor, MC guy, was building me up, this creature that he had invented. And the final moment came on, Spy-Dora! And he would lift off the canvas, and I'd be there, and people would ooh, ah, Spy-Dora. And my eyes would open, and he would ask me, Spy-Dora, how are you feeling? And I'm like, feed me. Acting 101, okay? And he'd ask me another question, and I'd go, feed me. And they did, with malted milk balls, ice cubes, whatever it is that they had in their hands, they would feed me. It was one of the most humbling jobs I've had, but it was helping me pay the bills. I was paying the bills, but not only that, I was performing and getting paid to do it. And this was in 1974. I missed 73. But I was like, okay, I'll do this for $2.25 an hour. Anyway, that's what it was like. Feed me.
I love it. Now, to this day in Ghost Town, they have peek-ins where you can walk up to the old buildings and you peek in through the windows and you kind of see a still life recreated from the Old West. And back in these early years of Not Scary From, they were repurposed for the event and named Startling Peek-ins. And sometimes they actually had live monsters in there. Next slide. Julie, what were startling peek-ins? What do you remember about them?
Well, you're all familiar with the peek-ins at Knott's. Now they've come alive with Ghost Town Alive, right? Well, we did the dead version of them back in the early 70s. So we would sit, I was in the poker room actually, and there were people also in other peek-ins, as well as, remember the walking down to the mine where you pan for gold? There was a tunnel, so we would put people in there as well. So it was like the first maze experience, really. You're walking through Ghost Town and people are looking in these peek-ins, and I was dressed up as a monster. It's pretty similar to that. And I would just be frozen. And people are looking. And then I would do... I was so sore the next day, let me tell you. I was glad it was only 3 nights, but that's what we did. People were staring in these peek-ins, and we would scare the bejeebies out of them. Who needs technology, right? When you could just do it with your body. And it was really actually quite satisfying to scare the heck out of people. I loved it.
It's so cool. Yeah. Now, hopefully you're getting a little bit of the idea that Knott's had a lot going on in those beginning years, and what we're going to learn next is how they sort of built and expanded on those ideas. However, the foundation was already built by pioneers such as these people here, so for that we are forever grateful. So let's hear it for John Waite, and Julie Owens. We're moving quick here, people. So sit tight. Like I said, we're going to move fast here. So go ahead and hit the lights, and we're going to bring out our next panel.
Many visitors disappear.
The tradition for those employee shirts started in the very late 80s, early 90s, somewhere around there. However, the original Yahn crew started a handful of years before that, in the early to mid 1980s. It was comprised of almost this sort of ragtag group of ride operators who decorated the lion's share of Yahn attractions at that time. One of the original members for that original cruise, our first panelist here, please welcome Mr. Brian McGee. Next up, during the late 70s, all of the 1980s, most of the 1990s, the Not Scary Farm exterior, the park decor, was absolutely unreal. Unlike any kind of midway overlay seen at any kind of theme park for a seasonal event like that. Responsible for many of those looks during the late 70s and most of the 1980s is the former Knott's Berry Farm head of park decor. Give it up for Del Langdale. Sliding. Do we have any fans of sliders out there? Sliding as a scare tactic began in the mid-1980s and was created by the Ghost Town Monsters. The actors themselves were literally sliding on the ground without any kind of padding or anything like that. As we can see in a couple of those photos in that little opening montage, those are the earliest known photos that we have of sliders dating back to 1984, 1985. However, it wasn't until the late 1980s that one Not Scary Farm employee introduced the metal gloves and the skateboard knee pads and revolutionized the scare tactic forever. That one Not Scary Farm employee was this man right here. Please welcome Todd Stubbler. Okay, now it's important to note that by the early 1980s, the Hurlbut Amusement Company sold the Log Ride and the Mine Ride to the Knott family, and so then Knott's Berry Farm became responsible for decorating those attractions for Halloween. Brian, go ahead and hit the next slide now. Brian, can you talk a little bit about how these ride operators ended up becoming supervisors and decorating most of the Yahn attractions at that time?
Well, it was a ragtag group, yes. We basically put a group together of talented ride operators and supervisors, and we basically over the years we organized it more and more every year. But we basically got materials and we planned out what we're going to do and gave ourselves time to do. We had to be pulled off the ride schedule to do that, and sometimes it didn't work. So we basically threw it together the best that we could and got it done on time with the talent that we had, and took it all down right afterwards to get the rides back up and going when that was done.
Very cool. Now, another note I want to make is that during Brian's time of being employed at Knott's Berry Farm, the quantity of haunted attractions produced for Knott's Berry Farm nearly doubled by 1987. We can hit the next slide there. Brian, how did your crew decorate so much for this rapidly growing event?
We had to try to get more and more people involved and pull them off of rides during the summer, which was very busy, and after summer, and put together as much as we could, as fast as we could, and then get them into the rides when the rides were closed and the times that we could do this. We were working day and night, and sometimes very, very long days and weekends as well. So it was a lot of work for a small amount of people. But like I say, each year it got more and more organized. We were able to reuse things or redress things. So it got more organized. It became a little bit easier to do. That way we could take on more rides as we progressed through the years.
Very cool. Now, outside of all of these attractions were the park decorations. And like I said back then, absolutely unreal. It was, because it was all encompassing. Because everybody participated, from food services to merchandise. Dell, can you talk a little bit about what your approach was when it came to decorating Knott's Scary Farm, and maybe you talk a little bit about the park-wide participation and the employee incentives and things like that?
The employee contest, yes, that was a doozy. That was very interesting. One of my jobs for the Halloween Haunt was not only to dress the park for the event, but help guide, let's use the word guide, the employees that work in food service, merchandising, even backstage got involved with the decor. But as far as dressing the overall park, anything that we didn't do under my watch as far as park decor, the food service division did their own thing, the merchandise people did their own thing, inside the stores, outside the stores. And one of the things I'll never forget was I was talking to some kids that wanted to dress the cantina. You remember the cantina in Fiesta Village? It's a Hispanic food facility, and they wanted to make it into like a haunted castle. And I mean, yeah, exactly. And I'm thinking, oh boy, how do you handle this one? Because they have $50 to dress the facility. All the hours they want to put in for free, nobody got paid. And they did it when at that time Knott's was closed during 2 days of the week, Tuesday and Wednesday, I think it was, and Thursday and Friday. At any rate, I said, okay, go ahead, great idea, let's see how this works out, because I don't want to make them feel bad initially. So I remember taking my electric cart out to Fiesta Village and stopping and just staring at this facility. It was absolutely beautiful. They did an amazing job, and they were so proud of the fact that they had collected cardboard for weeks before the haunt to use as props and to paint sets and flats to make this facility look beautiful. I was dumbfounded, and I thought, wait a minute, one rule here is you don't do better than the boss. But they did. They did a beautiful job. It was amazing.
That's awesome. Now, one thing I want to note is that during Dell's employment for Knott's Berry Farm, he worked in a now defunct department named Design and Planning. That department was founded and run by Mary Knott herself. Dell, can you talk a little bit about what it was like working for the Knott family during these early years of Knott's Scary Farm?
Absolutely. First of all, if none of you knew the Knott family or experienced them, an amazing family with a huge situation on their hands with how do you make 160 acres of theme park look scary for Halloween, and how do you present yourself to the rest of the park guests during the day that we aren't crazy, that we'll do a good job, but we're not going to make it look messy or just unorganized. But working with Mary, and I have very fond memories of her, she's a very nice lady, as is the whole Knott family. And one thing I always used to think about with Knott's Berry Farm for Halloween Haunt was we had an immediate set to design for. Walter Knott started Ghost Town. How could you mess up Ghost Town for Halloween, right? I mean, you have to be pretty bad at what you do if you don't do a good job. But as far as the Knott family, lovely, wonderful people, I always had a very, very deep concern for what the park looked like during the day and what the daytime guests saw versus what the nighttime guests. And I was representing Knott's and the family traditions and history, and I think we did a good balancing act.
Yeah, I mean, that's really important, because at the end of the day, if it wasn't for Walter Knott and his family, sort of the empire that they built, we wouldn't be doing this celebration here. So it's really kind of important to keep that in sort of perspective. Now, by the mid-1980s into the late 1980s, new generations of guests were discovering Knott's Scary Farm, and as a result, the scaring got a little bit, or a lot more, aggressive with things like sliding. Todd, there were sliders before your time, but can you talk a little bit about what you saw from those sliders and how and why you introduced these metal gloves and the skateboard knee pads?
Well, like you said, it was more of a belly flop on the ground. It was just sort of crawling after people, flopping on the ground. Guys would have to put leather strips of leather on their knees so they wouldn't burn through the jeans, which we did nonstop. The gloves in that picture are actually these gloves right here. These are the very first sliding gloves right here. And I can't believe they're still in one piece. But we used to just kind of jump around at people, and then at some point I did see someone who had the only capped pads you could get at the time were carpet layers pads at Home Depot or whatever. And so there was a few guys that would slide up and down like this. And I thought, I could do something better than that. We used to take the shaker cans and we would slide on those, scrape it out while we dove, and then that was kind of cool until they broke and all the stuff would spill out all over the ground. Or we were running them back and forth on the ground, and then we realized all we did all weekend was sharpen them, pretty much. So we took those back to the warehouse at some point, and some manager was like, yeah, no, you can't do that. That's not. And so we threw those away. So I still wanted to get the same. Metal scraping on the ground is a distinct noise you don't hear every day. You don't just walk down the street and hear something scraping on the ground. And so I just thought, man, there's got to be a way to do that. And went to a local Ace Hardware or whatever, and I'll never forget the guy's face when I said, how do I glue metal onto a leather glove? And the guy just stared at me for the longest time, and his eyes got real big, and I was like, what are you doing? I was like, oh, it's a scary thing. We're going to run around and slide on the ground. He's like, okay, sure, weirdo. Come on over. So he showed me that, and then we finally got the caps for these didn't come around, or these pads didn't come around until the 90s. Skateboarding was hot in the 70s, faded in the 80s, came back in the 90s, and when it came back in the 90s, that's when we just started buying these things by the gross. And for anybody, does anybody out there work in Camp Snoopy at all? Anybody Camp Snoopy that's here? Yeah? That's where sliding started, just so you know. Camp Snoopy is where it started. Ghost Town is where it became popular. Camp Snoopy is where it started.
Now, we got another couple pictures of Todd's earlier characters, and now, hopefully you're able to kind of get a little bit of an idea that sort of the magic and growth in those early years of Knott's Scary Farm was really kind of derived from the people behind the scenes, taking their own initiative to better the event. It was the event's success in those early years was really kind of derived from these types of people right here. So let's give a huge thank you to Brian Langdale and Todd Stubbler. Go ahead, here we go.
And second, the designer.
1980s were created by the Rides people. By the close of the 1980s, Knott's Berry Farm took the haunted attraction design and placed it under the entertainment department umbrella, which is where it's still conducted to this day. However, the first person that was brought in and wound up becoming what we would pretty much all ultimately refer to as a quote-unquote maze designer for Knott's Scary Farm is our first panelist, who worked on legendary mazes such as Revenge of the Dead and Uncle Ernie's Madhouse. Please welcome Larry McCauley. After a handful of years of this design department becoming more established, it eventually needed a manager. Having spent 18 years as a Knott's Berry Farm employee and is the former entertainment design manager, and he himself having designed legendary mazes such as the 25th anniversary maze, Toon Territory, Quarantine, and 13 Acts Murder Manor. Give it up for Todd Fox. And next up, we've got this guy, the new kid on the block, who, if you didn't know, is still a current Knott's Berry Farm employee. However, in a very short period of time, has carved himself out a very nice chunk of haunt history by introducing some of the most innovative attractions ever seen at Knott's Scary Farm with Special Ops Infected and Paranormal Incorporated. Please welcome John Cooke. So it's kind of important to know that by the close of the 1980s and into the early 1990s, Knott's Scary Farm really kind of started to get its legs, really kind of almost kind of grew up. Larry, before even working for Knott's Berry Farm, you had artistic experience, you had a theatrical background from Cal State Fullerton. Can you talk a little bit about how you sort of fell into this position for Knott's Scary Farm?
My background was set design at Cal State Fullerton, Chapman University, and I had opened a small theater with some friends as a producer. I produced a play that I wrote in Brea, California, and then I took a job at Knott's Berry Farm doing lighting for a rock and roll show, and also working in the Good Time Theater. During the Good Time Theater thing, I started doing cartoons because I was an artist, and they were always kind of funny and sometimes offensive a little bit. And I kind of got in trouble with a couple of them, and then finally one I did some, a drawing that was making fun of the set a little bit, and they were like, oh yeah, that's bad. Maybe we should do something with this guy and get him to do something else. So Tom Clough, who was really a designer himself, who was one of my great mentors, said, why don't you design one of the mazes for Halloween Haunt this year? And so they gave me the auto race, which was pretty much the Revenge of the Dead. And I loved it because it was like a half-mile walk through. And they said, cut it shorter. And I'm like, no, it's the anticipation. People walk for yards and yards before anything ever happens. And that's how I kind of got started in the whole thing. I think with the Rides people, we had pretty much locked up all the props because a lot of times you'd find like a $350 skeleton painted orange fluorescent color, and I was like, wow. And then we tried to
on the next slide, there's a couple of the props that you worked on back then.
Who is that guy? He looks younger.
Very cool. Now, by the early 1990s, mid-1990s, Knott's Scary Farm just matured immensely. It sort of went through this sort of renaissance with iconic attractions like Larry the Vampire, the original Dominion of the Dead, Nightmares, Mother Goose's Scary Tales. Does anybody remember any of those mazes? Yeah. Legendary mazes by legendary designers like Chris Williams, Scott Auerbach, Catherine Waite, David Ortiz was around at that time. Very cool era in Knott's Scary Farm's history. By the close of the 1990s and into the 2000s, this event was producing a lot of entertainment each October. Todd, from a management standpoint, can you talk a little bit about the process on how this department produces so much content every season?
Well, at that point we started to actually have a system for each maze, and we would write a script and do a lot of spreadsheets actually. So everything was more organized at that point. Also, the park started to actually give us places to store things. In the 90s when I started working there, everything would be outside all year long. The walls, the props would be in boxes. They would just, by the time we'd open them up the next year, it's pretty funky. But it's fortunate now that they have places in the resources. So they sort of started just giving more and more resources to that. And the management was just delegating and doing lots of lists and keeping it organized, right?
Just to switch gears just a little bit, because it wasn't that long ago in Knott's Scary Farm history that it gained some international attention by producing some movie-based mazes like The Grudge 2 and Quarantine. In fact, Knott's Scary Farm hosted the world premiere for the movie Quarantine, and Todd, you designed that maze. Can you talk a little bit about that process on bringing the movie Quarantine and turning it into a Knott's Scary Farm maze? Because you had some different types of twists to it. It wasn't just a book report of the movie. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, designing the maze is not unlike a movie. It actually has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So that's sort of when you're coming up with a theme and the story of walking through a maze, that's the process that you use. So I just broke down the movie in that respect. And because it was set in an apartment building and you were in the lobby of the apartment building, the trick was going back into that lobby. That was a very important part of the story. So we actually had to design 2 separate lobbies and have the one at the beginning look normal and the one at the end was full of all the zombies. But that was a pretty great experience working with Sam Raimi and Sony Studios, getting to take a tour backstage and meet Sam. And that was when I made my pitch for the Angels. I told him that we wanted to do Army of Darkness in the mine ride. Of course, then that never happened, but that would have been pretty cool because I think that would have worked out really well.
I totally agree. You know, Knott's continues to grow and adapt with each new generation that comes in. Knott's now has a lot of history to use as sort of a tool set. These tools were created by people like Larry and Todd and even current haunt legends Daniel Miller, Gus Kruger, and now, of course, John Cooke. John, when it comes to your current presentations like Shadowlands or Paranormal Inc., can you talk a little bit about maybe using the events past to help with these fresh new ideas?
Where do I start? Okay, so when I was fresh, let me take a step back a little bit. When I was fresh out of high school, I went to Knott's Scary Farm for the first time. And it was my first exposure to any kind of haunted attraction. And a lot of people say that Disneyland's the most magical place on earth. To me, it was Knott's Scary Farm. I wanted to know everything about this event, so that very next year I went and applied to be a monster. And I was turned away, but it's okay. The next year, I got hired as a carpenter, and from there, through the next 8 years, worked my way up to design. And where these guys provided the template for what we still do today, which is really neat. If you roll out these guys' ground plans, it's very, very similar to what we still do today. How the way they lay out the mazes, the way they lay out the scares, the safety, all that, it's still the same. From there, we have this amazing foundation to where we can build and start to kind of look into new avenues of how to keep things fresh.
So cool. Now, I do want to ask this because this was such an ambitious attraction of taking the entire 6-acre Camp Snoopy Midway portion of Knott's Berry Farm and cutting it off from regular guest traffic at Knott's Scary Farm and turning it into a massive zombie apocalypse named Special Ops Infected. John, how in the world did this happen? Can you talk a little bit about that process?
Yeah, I think it all started with just the state of the industry where all these different events, us, Universal Queen Mary, all these even home haunts are reaching these levels of quality that are just, insane. So from there, I think people started to try and get creative and innovative of how we could change things up. And people started dipping their toes into experiences like trap to kind of get the innovative experience going. And at that point, I wasn't a designer yet, and I came to our current boss at the time, Laura Hanneman, and I said, I have this really crazy idea, and I think herself as well as everybody else jumped at it for something new and fresh. And I will say, our original idea was to do special ops infected at Soap City and take up the entire area of Soap City.
Wow, cool.
A couple of people at that point were like, I don't know, let's take it back. So we ended up going for the insane opportunity and doing it in Camp Snoopy.
Wow. Knott's continues to evolve. That's kind of a key word here. What we're going to see next is how they've done that with some of their live entertainment. But it's important to know that some of these Knott's Scary Farm attractions that we've talked about today have had very positive impacts on large portions of the theme park industry, and that's due in part to the contributions made by these pioneers right here. So let's give a huge thank you to Larry McCauley, Todd, and John Cooke. Scary Farm in the 1980s has sort of reached this legendary status in the world of the event. Very serious show, unlike anything Knott's Scary Farm was producing at that time. In fact, the content featured in those shows sort of wound up becoming the backstory, the folklore for Knott's Scary Farm's Ghost Town, and built the backstory for the event's recent icon, the Green Witch. The actress who portrayed that ominous witch character in those famous witch hangings is our first panelist. Please welcome Vickie Yahn. Now, eventually, that witch character in the hanging was replaced by Freddy Krueger, and a new chapter of the show began as it sort of morphed into the pop culture satire stunt show format that we're familiar with today. Our next panelist has written, directed, and starred in various versions of these newer hangings. He's written, directed, and starred in various incarnations of Dr. Cleaver, and is the current Knott's Berry Farm Vice President of Entertainment. Give it up for Ken Parks. Okay, next up, an absolute Knott's Scary Farm staple for many, many years. He mesmerized thousands and thousands of Not Scary Farm guests throughout the years as he performed at every major venue throughout the park. Birdcage Theater, Cloud9 Ballroom, Wagon Camp, and then headlining the event as a whole several times at the Charles M. Schultz Theater. It's my pleasure and honor to introduce to you the misfit of magic, Ed Alonzo. Wow! Ed, we're going to start off with you, but I have a confession to make. I love Ed Alonzo. I miss you at Not Scary Farm. Don't we miss Ed Alonzo? Well, as I said before, Ed, throughout the years, had performed at every major venue at Not Scary Farm. Ed, can you talk a little bit about that process of expanding your show from a more intimate venue like the Birdcage Theater to the much larger Charles M. Schultz Theater, where you incorporate pyrotechnics and dancing and all that stuff? Can you talk a little bit about that?
All the big stuff. Well, first, I'm the biggest fan of the Halloween hunt. I can't even believe I'm up here with these guys today. So thank you so much. And my years at Knott's were amazing. I loved working on the shows there. But I started out, my very first Halloween hunt was in 1993, and the entertainment department came to me. I was performing just down the street at a dinner theater called Wild Bill's in Waite Park. And I was kind of the headline comedy guy at the end of the show. And Amanda Mateague, who was one of the entertainment people at Knott's, came out and saw me and said, would you be interested in doing our Halloween hunt? Of course, like, would I? So she put me in the Cloud9 Ballroom, which I think is one of the toughest rooms to do a show in, much less comedy. And so it just kind of worked okay. And then they said, well, let's try it again. So the next year, 1994, then I did it again in the Cloud9. It was a little better, but the seating was weird. It was difficult to see. And then they came up with the great idea of, like, you know what? We've never been able to put a Halloween show at the Wagon Camp. Let's put Ed in the Wagon Camp. Well, now this is even further the worst theater to perform at, because there's a giant cliff that you're looking up the side of, and you can't even see the performers. And I remember when we were creating the show there, I said, well, I need sort of a backdrop. Couldn't we tie a cable from this building where they do the high fall over to the tree that's planted right here in the middle of the stage? And they said, oh no, that is the sacred tree that Marion Knott planted with her own hands, and that tree will never be cut down. So we took a big giant nail and spiked it into the tree and threaded up a backdrop anyway. And that was the worst show I ever did, because we did the song The Girl in Half, and I remember I pulled the box apart, and the box that had the girl all curled up in it, she fell over. Because I don't know if you know, the stunt stage is like walking on a trampoline, so there's no hard surface. So we bring the boxes out and everything would fall. So I thought, that's it, my career at Knott's Berry Farm is done. Then the entertainment director came to me the next year and he says, I think I have a good idea. Do you know our theater called the Birdcage? I said, yes, that's where Steve Martin used to do the melodrama shows when I was a kid. I got on my knees to that entertainment director and I said, feed me! Just like Julie Owens did years before. And I went into that Birdcage and it was like a freaking comedy club. It was just 200 people and it had a brick wall behind me basically. And that was the blessing. I loved working in there, and that's where I was able to create kind of a mystique of doing kind of a naughty comedy for Halloween, and wow, that seemed to work out pretty good. Did any of you see me in the Birdcage? Yeah. Now I'm not asking you to go back to the Birdcage, because the pay is crap. But that was the ground, the school for me to learn and find out who all of you people were, the audience that loved the Halloween stuff. And I started to study the audience, and I said, I know what they want now. And by the time I was offered to go into the big theater, I think we rocked it out and it went well. And I think I did about 5 different years in there. And then Cassandra said, oh, I want to go back in there and show my boobs off again. And so I said, yes, do it. I want to see those babies. And so it was fun. And Cedar Fair, the company that owns Knott's and all their other parks, they have moved me around year to year to year to all of their other Halloween Haunts events. And this year I'm going to be at Santa Clara at Great America doing their huge Halloween Haunt. So thank you guys.
That's so cool. Now,
did I even answer your question? No.
you absolutely answered the question. Thank you.
Are we out of time?
No, I have another question for you because you mentioned performing at the other Cedar Fair parks. I'm a strong believer in it, but I want to hear your thoughts. Why does magic work so well at these Halloween events?
Well, magic has always been a great part of Halloween. Even when I was a kid and I would go to the Halloween Haunt at Knott's, friends of mine that were much older were performing magic out there. Mark Kalin, a magician, was there. And many other mind-reading acts and mentalists, and it was fantastic. Magic has always been embraced by Halloween. But I think it has to do with the trick or the treat. And magic is always about tricks, and hopefully, you know, a girl appears or I pull a brown balloon out of my ass. There's always something fun to do. And I think that that's where we bring the real theater goers who enjoy Halloween Haunt. I'm sorry, no drugs are just kicking in. I'm done. I'm okay. You may have read Screech's book from Saved by the Bell, that he didn't like me. But that's I realized what the audience was, and I think that we gave them you know, what they want, and obviously it worked out because now I get to travel around the country every year to do the different Halloween haunts. But I hope that eventually Elvira will put her wig and her boobs up on the shelf, and that they'll invite me to come back so that I can dazzle all of you again with my naughty magic.
Wow. Now, not long before Ed began performing at Knott's Berry Farm, there was a very dark show taking place in Calico Square every season, The Hangings. Vickie, as the star of those shows, can you talk a little bit about what those hangings were for those who never got a chance to see them?
Sure. First of all, how do I follow this up? Well, I was doing the stunt shows in the wagon camp, and then they were going to do a hanging, and they needed a witch, so I thought I was a natural, so I auditioned. And it was a very simple show. I think that's why it worked. Very simple to compare to what they have now. And we actually did the hanging at midnight. And about 30 minutes before the show would start, the crowd would gather around, and that's when the street monsters would get the crowd going. And they would just drive them crazy. It was great to see. And then at midnight, everything got quiet. And then all you heard was a drummer. And this poor, pitiful creature crying and begging. And they had me on a cart, and there were 4 street monsters that slowly took me through the streets. And I begged and I pleaded, and my hands were bound, and the street monsters were going crazy, and I was begging for mercy, telling them I wasn't a witch, and this was not right, and oh my heavens, and just crying and begging. Then they take me out of the cart, they drag me up the stairs, and I'm crying and screaming and weeping, and they're beating me, and the crowd is going crazy. So of course, the more crazy the crowd went, the more crazy we did. And as I get up onto the gallows, then the executioner is there, and the hangman is there, and the monsters are there, and I am still sobbing and crying and saying I'm innocent. And then the executioner, God bless you, J.B., shoots off his shotgun and quiets the whole Calico Square. And then he proceeds to tell everybody all the wrongdoings that I did. And I swear I was innocent. I didn't do any of it. And I'm still begging and pleading, and the monsters are getting the crowds going. And then he asked the crowd, what should they do with me? Should we kill her? Should we hang her? And of course, everybody says yes. Well, you know, a woman can only take so much. I got a little angry, I got a little annoyed. And so guess what? I showed my true colors, and then the music changed, I changed, and now you have a full-blown pissed-off witch telling you that she's going to curse you, Calico Square, your family. I've had enough. Well then, right before they pulled the lever and he asked everybody if I should be hung, they said yes. So right before he does that, I get mad, and then they do the lever, I go dropping to my death. And let me tell you, back in the day, those harnesses, they're not like they are now. Man, that thing was something out of medieval. I had leather, and that's why I had such a big dress. I had to hide this thing. So as I drop to my death, then the monsters go to pick me up, and then all of a sudden, the whole gallows goes into flames, and all the street monsters, everybody scrambles down the stairs. And all of a sudden, there's nothing there. It's gone. And then you hear a scream, a screech, and my famous words, "I'll be back, I'll be back." And then a black raven, which, interesting enough, looked a lot like a homing pigeon, would fly off into the night. And that was the hanging.
Now, by the late 1980s, at Knott's Scary Farm in Charleston Circle, there was a show named Laser Music Madness that starred Freddy Krueger. In fact, that show was co-written by Julie Owens, who we met earlier today. There's a former Knott's entertainment director, Tom Clough, that we spoke about a little bit earlier. He saw Freddy in this laser show and said, let's put him into the hanging. And a new chapter for the show began, and the format was forever changed. Ken, having been so involved with these newer hangings, can you talk a little bit about the process on what it takes to bring them to life? Because there's so many pop culture references and heavy on stunts and choreography. What's that process like?
Well, the last one I did was in 2015, so I've done about 15 or 16 of them. The process is always the same. What happened, unfortunately, is that pop culture and how we get pop culture and how it's delivered to it has radically changed. You know, when I started, there was nothing. There wasn't the internet. You know, there weren't viral videos. It's been a positive and a negative, right? In that the shelf life of pop culture is so quick. And then now, everything is kind of the same 8 superheroes, right? So you can only do so many Spider-Man ejaculation jokes, and that's about it. So, true. However, anyway, the process is the same. You kind of sit in a room with the folks that you're working on the show with, and you make a laundry list of what has happened. Who were the most notorious people in the last year? Who were the most annoying people in the last year? What were the events that really kind of, as a collective group of human beings, would all kind of piss us off? And so that's where you start. Then what happens is it's not just one guy. It's a group of people that kind of come together and put the show together, because once you kind of, although I am the person who eventually sits and types and directs the show, it really is the getting together in the studio, and we've had some amazing audio folks over the years, like Adam Hankinson and Rob Perez, who piece the show together with us, and then you bring in some talented voiceover actors and actors who are in the show, and they come up with some ad-libs that you think, okay, we got to put that in. And then you get out and work with some amazing stunt folks. Kevin Kim, who was the stunt coordinator on the shows that I did. You know, all of those stunt performers would come with these fantastic ideas. Then, you know, we were so lucky we've got all of these folks that our build staff, our props folks, really that team who would also come and say, hey, listen, you know, I was thinking we could add this to it. And so it really is a collective group of people. It's really been thousands and thousands of people, literally over the years, who put that show together. And it's been a pleasure to do, and it's been really fun. The thing with it that is always kind of interesting is that when I started, the first year I did it in '99 maybe, or 2000, someone said, well, it wasn't as good as last year's. I heard that every single year, that it wasn't as good as last year's, but eventually it was me that was the person that they were saying I wasn't as good as the guy that used to do it. So that's it. But anyway, that's it. There you go. So it won't be any good this year either. Okay. Get your tickets now. They're on sale.
Now I do have a question since I've got the Knott's VP of Entertainment sitting
Who
right
has said ejaculated and piss in the same show, so HR is quickly calling.
I won't put you on the spot too much, but we have talked a lot about Knott's Scary Farm's history today. Now Ken, in general terms, we're not looking for any kind of spoiler announcement or anything, but just in general terms, what can we expect from the event's future?
Well, I've been coming to Scary Farm since 1984, and I've worked every single Scary Farm but one since '96. And so there's a lot of, the beauty of that is that you get to see the great work that so many people who have touched this event have done throughout the years, and you've gotten to experience not only as a fan, but somebody who was so excited about the event, you know, that I had to work there. And so I've gotten a chance to see all of these great things over the years. I think everything old is new again, meaning I think you know, we're so lucky that we have a terrific design team with Gus and Daniel and John, and we're constantly looking at new ways that we can be innovative but not forget what our past has been. And so I think what you'll see us leaning more into making the entire park an attraction as opposed to sometimes, yeah, I'm with you on that. You know, sometimes you go, and we were, the past several years have been guilty of it as well. You know, we've been trying to sort of protect our day show as well as, you know, have the night show. And so I think there's a way, I think if we're clever enough, we can figure out a way to have the day show be enhanced and have a heavier decor package that also benefits us at night. So I think you'll start seeing that. And then I think you'll start seeing more immersion and interactivity happening. I think the nice thing for us with, you know, we don't deal with a ton of IP. So what happens for us is it allows us to be super creative, forces us to do that. So we're super thankful for that. But it also allows us to then design things that change the way that people interact with the mazes, meaning that we can now, we're really focusing on what is the role of the guest in that maze, who are they in that story, as opposed to, hey, you know, I'm watching this unfold. And IP kind of does that for you, right? It puts you in the same spot of, hey, I watched it as a movie and now I'm watching it, or as a television show or whatever, I'm watching it now. I think you'll find that we're going to do more of that, that you know, the audience will play a bigger part and they will have a role in it. We announced yesterday Trick or Treat, and we've gone through, I don't want to oversell this, but we went through it with no talent the other night, and twice I cursed. I was so scared, I cursed out loud in front of my staff. So I'm only the VP for probably the next 10 minutes. But it's really impressive. And I think that's where you'll see where we're going to go in the future. So.
It's very promising, and at the end of the day, if not Scary Farm's past is any indication, this event's future is very, very bright. Now, before we kind of wrap things up, what I'd like to do is bring out all of our panelists for one sort of final curtain call. We can just kind of stand up right here, everybody. And as we do that, I just want to mention something. We have touched a lot of Knott's Scary Farm's history today, so hopefully you have been able to see that a lot of that magic is really derived from the talented people behind the scenes. As we can see here, extremely talented people. Keep moving over here. We've got artists and designers and technicians, very talented people. However, none of that means anything without an audience. It is you, the fans, that return to Knott's Scary Farm every year. Yeah, it is to the new fans that discover this event every season. You are the life's blood of Knott's Scary Farm. This is as much your story as it is our story. This is as much your history as it is our history. So on behalf of myself, Ted Dougherty, Midsummer Scream, and our panelists, we thank you for joining us today. And to our wonderful panelists, thank you for your contributions. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you guys out in a couple minutes over at the reception. But in the meantime,